As the storm raged outside, sheets of rain lashed against the window, creating a rhythmic symphony that echoed through the dimly lit apartment. Alex sat curled up on his worn-out couch, a blanket wrapped tightly around him, his heart racing as he scrolled through his phone. The flickering light of the screen illuminated his anxious expression, casting shadows across the room that felt almost alive. He had been on edge for weeks, ever since he had noticed someone watching him from a distance, someone whose presence sent chills down his spine. The incident that had triggered his paranoia replayed in his mind like a broken record. It had been a typical evening. He was walking home from work when he felt it, the unmistakable sensation of being followed. He had glanced over his shoulder to find a figure lurking in the shadows, their face obscured by the darkness. Panic surged through him, propelling him into a sprint that left him breathless and terrified. Since then, every creak of the floorboards and rustle of leaves outside felt like an ominous warning. Tonight was different, though. As he sat in the oppressive silence of his living room, his phone buzzed unexpectedly, breaking through the storm's roar. He picked it up with trembling hands, heart pounding in anticipation. The message was from an unknown number. "I know you're in trouble. I can help you, but you need to trust me." A cold shiver ran down Alex's spine as he read the words again. Who was this person? How did they know about his fears? He felt an unsettling mix of dread and curiosity wash over him. The rational part of him screamed to ignore it, to block the number and go back to pretending everything was fine. But another part, a desperate part, wondered if this could be the lifeline he so desperately needed. He stared at the screen, contemplating his next move. Should he respond? What if this was a trap? The anxiety clawed at him, tightening its grip as he weighed his options. The storm outside intensified, thunder rumbling ominously as if echoing his internal turmoil. Finally, driven by a mix of fear and hope, Alex typed back cautiously, "Who are you?" He hit send and waited, breath held tight in his chest. Minutes passed like hours. Just as doubt began to creep in, his phone buzzed again. "Someone who cares about you. I've been watching over you." His heart raced at those words, watching over him. Was this person truly a friend or something far more sinister? Memories of Ethan flooded his mind, the man he had seen lurking around town more than once. Ethan was tall with dark hair and an intensity in his gaze that both intrigued and terrified Alex. He had never spoken to Ethan directly but felt an inexplicable connection mixed with fear. The thought of Ethan sent another shiver down Alex's spine. Was it possible that this stranger was connected to him? He couldn't shake off the feeling that Ethan was somehow involved in all of this. His presence had always felt too close for comfort. Before he could spiral further into paranoia, another message popped up. "I can help you feel safe again." Alex's breath caught in his throat as he considered the implications of those words. Could he really trust someone who had been watching him from afar? The idea both terrified and excited him. He felt trapped between two worlds, one where he remained isolated and fearful, and another where he could perhaps find solace in someone who understood his plight. With a shaky exhale, Alex made a decision that would change everything. "Okay," he typed back slowly. "I'm listening." As soon as he hit send, a mixture of relief and dread washed over him. Outside, lightning illuminated the sky for just a moment, casting eerie shadows across his living room walls, shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of their own. The storm continued to rage on as Alex sat there, heart racing and mind racing even faster, unsure of what lay ahead but knowing one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a washed-out world glistening in the early sunlight. Alex woke to the soft chirping of birds outside his window, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night before. He rubbed his eyes, still feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. Had he really agreed to talk to someone who claimed to be watching over him? As he sat up in bed, the remnants of last night's conversation replayed in his mind. He had received another message from the unknown number, but it was vague and cryptic, leaving him with more questions than answers. "Meet me at the cafe on Maple Street at noon. I can help you." Just like that, he was thrust into a world of intrigue and fear. He took a deep breath and swung his legs over the side of the bed, feeling the coolness of the hardwood floor beneath his feet. The thought of facing Ethan again sent a shiver through him. He had seen Ethan around town, always lurking at a distance, always watching. But now, he was no longer just an unsettling figure, he He was part of this strange web that Alex found himself entangled in. After a quick shower and a cup of coffee that did little to calm his nerves, Alex dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans. He glanced at himself in the mirror, searching for any semblance of confidence. Today was going to be different. He needed to take control of his life again, even if it meant confronting fears he had tried so hard to ignore. As noon approached, Alex made his way to the cafe on Maple Street, each step heavy with anticipation and dread. The sun shone brightly overhead, but he felt a chill in the air that had nothing to do with the weather. The cafe was bustling with people enjoying their afternoon drinks and pastries, laughter mingling with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. He pushed open the door and stepped inside, scanning the room for any sign of Ethan, or anyone who might be watching him. His heart raced as he spotted a familiar figure sitting at a corner table, Ethan. He looked up just as Alex entered, his dark eyes locking onto him with an intensity that made Alex's stomach twist. "Alex," Ethan said, his voice low but steady as he gestured for him to join him. "I'm glad you came." Taking a deep breath, Alex approached the table and slid into the seat opposite Ethan. "You said you could help me," he replied cautiously, trying to keep his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him. Ethan leaned forward slightly, an earnest expression on his face. "I know what you're going through. I've been watching you because I care about your safety." His words hung in the air between them like a fragile thread. "Watching me?" Alex echoed incredulously. "That's not exactly comforting." "I know it sounds bad," Ethan admitted, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "But I've seen things happen in this city, things that could put you in danger. I just wanted to make sure you were okay." Alex felt a mix of anger and confusion bubbling within him. "And how is stalking me supposed to help? You could have just approached me instead of hiding in the shadows." Ethan's gaze softened as he leaned back in his chair. "I didn't want to scare you away. I thought you might need time to understand what was happening before we talked." "Understand what?" Alex asked sharply, crossing his arms defensively. "Understand that there are people out there who don't have your best interests at heart," Ethan replied earnestly. "I've seen someone following you, someone who doesn't seem harmless." The mention of someone else sent a jolt of fear through Alex. "What do you mean? Who?" Ethan hesitated for a moment before continuing. "I can't say for sure yet, but I've noticed someone watching you from afar, someone who seems fixated on you." A wave of nausea washed over Alex as he recalled the figure he had seen trailing him weeks ago, the one who had sent him spiraling into paranoia. "Why should I believe you?" he challenged. "Because I'm here now," Ethan said quietly, his voice filled with sincerity. "I want to help you protect yourself." Alex studied Ethan's face for signs of deceit but found only earnestness staring back at him. There was something about Ethan that both terrified and intrigued him, a duality that mirrored his own conflicting feelings. "What do you suggest?" Alex asked reluctantly, curiosity beginning to outweigh his fear. Ethan's expression brightened slightly as if relieved by Alex's willingness to engage. "We need to be proactive about this. I can help you learn how to recognize when someone is following you and what steps to take if it happens again." As they continued talking, Alex found himself drawn into Ethan's world, a world filled with knowledge about safety and awareness that he had never considered before. With each passing moment, he felt layers of apprehension begin to peel away. But beneath it all lingered an unsettling question: could he truly trust this man who had once been nothing more than a shadow in his life? The conversation flowed naturally as they discussed strategies for staying safe and recognizing potential threats, but doubts still gnawed at Alex's mind like an insistent itch he couldn't scratch. After what felt like hours but was only 30 minutes later, they finished their drinks and stood up from the table. As they walked out together into the bright afternoon light, Alex felt an unfamiliar sense of hope mingling with anxiety, a fragile balance that could tip either way. In that moment, as they stepped onto Maple Street side by side, Alex realized that this was just the beginning of something complicated, and possibly dangerous, but perhaps also something worth exploring. As the days turned into weeks, Alex found himself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The initial fear that had gripped him began to transform into an uneasy trust in Ethan. They met frequently, often at the cafe on Maple Street, where their conversations shifted from safety strategies to deeper discussions about life, dreams, and fears. Each meeting peeled back layers of both men, revealing vulnerabilities that neither had expected to share. Ethan was surprisingly open about his past. He spoke of a childhood marked by instability and neglect, how he had learned to fend for himself from an early age. "People can be cruel," he said one afternoon, his gaze distant as he stirred his coffee absent-mindedly. "I learned quickly that if you want to survive, you have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to know when to trust and when to run." Alex listened intently, feeling a strange kinship with Ethan's experiences. He too had faced his share of struggles, though they manifested differently. His battles were internal, anxiety that often felt insurmountable and a history of feeling invisible in a world that moved too fast for him. Yet, as they grew closer, Alex couldn't shake the nagging doubts that lingered at the back of his mind. Ethan's protective nature was comforting but also suffocating at times. There were moments when Alex caught him watching him with an intensity that made his heart race, not out of fear but something more complicated. Was it admiration? Obsession? He wasn't sure. One evening, as they walked through a nearby park after dinner, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The air was cool and crisp, and for the first time in weeks, Alex felt a sense of normalcy wash over him. They strolled side by side, laughter punctuating their conversation. "Do you ever just stop and think about how weird life is?" Ethan asked suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. "What do you mean?" Alex replied, curious. "I mean," Ethan continued, "how we can go from being complete strangers to, whatever this is." He gestured between them vaguely but meaningfully. Alex felt his heart flutter at the implication. "Yeah, it's strange," he admitted, glancing sideways at Ethan. "But it's nice too." Ethan stopped walking and turned to face Alex fully. "Nice," he echoed softly, his eyes searching Alex's face for something unspoken. "Yeah," Alex said, feeling bold. "I mean, I've felt safer with you around." Ethan's expression softened as he stepped closer. "I'm glad to hear that," he said quietly. "I just want you to be okay." In that moment, something shifted between them, a spark ignited in the air that felt electric and charged with unacknowledged tension. Alex's heart raced as he looked into Ethan's eyes, searching for clarity in the depths of their dark pools. But just as quickly as it had come, the moment shattered when a loud shout erupted from nearby. A group of teenagers burst into view, laughing and running past them as they played some kind of tag game. The interruption pulled Alex back to reality, reminding him of the chaotic world outside their bubble. "Right," he said awkwardly, stepping back slightly and breaking eye contact. "We should probably keep moving." Ethan nodded but didn't seem deterred by the interruption. Instead, he fell back into step beside Alex as they continued walking through the park. Yet the air between them felt different now, charged with possibilities that both excited and terrified Alex. Later that night, as Alex lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he couldn't shake off the feeling that something significant was brewing beneath the surface of their friendship. He thought about Ethan's intensity, the way he seemed to know exactly what Alex needed without him having to say a word. But with that thought came another: was Ethan truly there to protect him? Or was there something darker lurking beneath his protective facade? The questions gnawed at him like an insatiable itch. The next day brought an unexpected twist when Jamie called him out of the blue while he was at work. "Hey, I've been meaning to catch up with you," Jamie said cheerfully over the phone. "Yeah, it's been a while," Alex replied cautiously. "Listen," Jamie said after a brief pause. "I'm worried about you." Alex frowned at Jamie's tone. "Worried? Why?" "I don't know, it just feels like you've been acting different since you met this guy, Ethan." Alex felt his defenses rise instinctively. "Ethan is helping me," he insisted. "I get that. But I don't like how secretive you've been about him," Jamie pressed on. "You barely talk about what you do together." I don't know how to explain it," Alex stammered, feeling cornered by Jamie's concern. "Just promise me you'll be careful," Jamie urged gently. "You don't really know this guy." "I know enough," Alex shot back defensively before softening his tone. "I promise I'll be careful." After hanging up with Jamie, Alex felt a wave of frustration wash over him. Why couldn't anyone see what he saw in Ethan? Why did they only focus on what made them uncomfortable? That evening, as he prepared to meet Ethan again at their usual spot in the cafe, doubt crept back into his mind like an unwelcome guest. What if Jamie was right? What if there was more to Ethan than met the eye? As he walked through the cafe doors and spotted Ethan waiting for him at their table, his dark hair tousled and eyes bright with anticipation, Alex felt a surge of conflicting emotions once more, excitement mingled with trepidation. "Hey," Ethan greeted him with a warm smile that made Alex's heart flutter despite his reservations. "Hey," Alex replied softly as he slid into the chair across from Ethan. They exchanged pleasantries and began discussing their week when suddenly Ethan leaned forward again, his expression shifting from casual to serious. "Alex," he said quietly, "there's something I need to tell you." The air thickened with tension as Alex braced himself for whatever revelation was coming next, his heart racing with anticipation and fear intertwined. Ethan's gaze held a weight that made Alex's stomach twist with apprehension. The cafe buzzed around them, but in that moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. "What is it?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper, the warmth of their earlier conversation fading into a tense silence. Ethan took a deep breath, his brow furrowing as he searched for the right words. "I've been doing some digging," he said slowly, his tone serious. "About the person I think has been following you." Alex's heart raced at the mention of a stalker. "You found something?" he pressed, leaning forward instinctively. Ethan nodded, his expression grave. "I've seen him a few times around your apartment and at your work. He doesn't just watch, he waits. And I think he's getting bolder." A chill ran down Alex's spine as Ethan's words sank in. The idea that someone was lurking in the shadows, watching him with malicious intent, was terrifying. "What do you mean by getting bolder?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "I mean," Ethan replied, his voice low and urgent, "I saw him last night. He was standing outside your building for over an hour." Alex felt his breath hitch in his throat. "What? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Panic surged through him as he recalled the previous night's events, how he had felt uneasy but brushed it off as paranoia. "I didn't want to alarm you," Ethan said quickly. "But I couldn't just sit back and do nothing anymore. You need to be aware of what's happening." "Awareness doesn't make me feel any safer," Alex shot back, frustration bubbling up inside him. "What do you want me to do? Hide in my apartment forever?" Ethan leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "No, I want you to take this seriously. We need to come up with a plan." "A plan?" Alex echoed incredulously. "What kind of plan? I can't just confront him, that would be insane." "I know it sounds extreme," Ethan said, his eyes narrowing slightly as if weighing his next words carefully. "But we can't let fear dictate your life. You have to reclaim your space." Alex felt a mix of anger and helplessness surge within him. "Reclaim my space? How am I supposed to do that when I don't even know who this person is?" Ethan leaned forward again, intensity radiating from him. "I can help you figure it out. We can set up surveillance, maybe even get some evidence to take to the police if it escalates." The thought of involving the police sent another wave of anxiety crashing over Alex. He had always been reluctant to draw attention to himself or admit that he was afraid. But now, with Ethan's unwavering gaze fixed on him, he felt compelled to consider it. "What if it makes things worse?" Alex asked quietly, uncertainty creeping into his voice. "It could," Ethan admitted honestly, "but it could also give you peace of mind knowing you're not just sitting back and letting this guy control your life." Alex stared at Ethan, searching for any hint of ulterior motives behind those dark eyes but found only determination and concern. It was a strange combination that both comforted and unsettled him. "Okay," Alex finally said after what felt like an eternity of deliberation. "Let's do it." Ethan's expression shifted from seriousness to relief, and he smiled faintly. "Good choice." As they discussed potential strategies over coffee, setting up cameras near Alex's apartment and being more vigilant about their surroundings, Alex felt a sense of empowerment slowly returning. It was as if Ethan was helping him reclaim not just his physical space but also his sense of agency. After their meeting ended, they walked together toward Alex's apartment building under the fading light of day. The streets were bustling with life, people laughing and chatting as they moved about their evening routines, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling that danger lurked just beyond the periphery. "Do you really think we'll find something?" Alex asked hesitantly as they approached his building. "I'm confident we will," Ethan replied reassuringly, though there was an edge of tension in his voice that suggested he too felt the weight of uncertainty. Once inside the building, they took the elevator up in silence until they reached Alex's floor. As they stepped out into the dimly lit hallway, Alex felt a wave of vulnerability wash over him, a stark reminder that home no longer felt like a sanctuary. "Do you want me to stay for a bit?" Ethan offered as they reached Alex's door. For a brief moment, Alex hesitated. He wanted nothing more than the comfort of having Ethan nearby, but also feared what that closeness might mean for their relationship, a relationship that had already blurred so many lines. Yeah, I'd like that," Alex finally said, opening the door and stepping inside. Once inside the apartment, they settled onto the couch together, an unspoken tension hanging between them like a thick fog. The room felt smaller somehow, the walls closing in as they navigated their complicated feelings amidst the looming threat outside. As they talked about mundane things, movies they liked and places they wanted to visit, the conversation flowed easily enough, but there were moments when their eyes would meet across the couch and linger just a second too long. Each glance sent shivers down Alex's spine. He could feel an electric charge building between them that made it hard to breathe. "Hey," Ethan said suddenly, breaking through Alex's thoughts as he leaned closer. "You okay?" "Yeah," Alex replied quickly, though he wasn't sure if he meant it. The proximity made his heart race for reasons beyond fear or anxiety. Ethan studied him for a moment before shifting back slightly but not breaking eye contact. "If things get too overwhelming, just let me know." "I will," Alex promised softly. As night fell outside and shadows danced along the walls of his apartment, Alex felt an odd mix of comfort and unease settle over him, a reminder that while he had found an unexpected ally in Ethan, there were still many unknowns ahead. The following days passed in a blur of heightened awareness and tension. Alex and Ethan worked together to set up surveillance around Alex's apartment, installing small cameras discreetly positioned to capture any suspicious activity. Each time they met, the dynamic between them shifted, an undercurrent of something unspoken simmered just beneath the surface of their conversations. One afternoon, as they reviewed footage from the cameras, Alex felt a knot of anxiety tightening in his chest. They had been at it for hours, scanning through clips of mundane activity, neighbors coming and going, delivery people dropping off packages, and the occasional stray cat wandering through the frame. But there was nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that confirmed his fears or justified his anxiety. "Maybe we're just being paranoid," Alex said, frustration creeping into his voice as he leaned back in his chair. "I mean, I haven't seen him since that night." Ethan paused the video and turned to face him. "Paranoia is a natural response to feeling threatened. It doesn't mean you're wrong to be cautious." His tone was calm but firm, as if he were trying to ground Alex amidst the chaos swirling in his mind. "I know," Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. "But it's exhausting. I just want my life back." Ethan's expression softened, and he leaned forward slightly. "I get it. But we're doing this to protect you. We'll find something, I promise." Alex nodded but felt a wave of doubt wash over him. He wanted to believe Ethan's words, but with each passing day without any sign of the stalker, he couldn't help but wonder if he was overreacting, if he was allowing Ethan's intensity to cloud his judgment. That evening, after another long day of searching for evidence that never seemed to materialize, Alex decided to meet Jamie for dinner. He hadn't seen his friend in weeks and felt a pang of guilt for neglecting their friendship amidst all the chaos. As they settled into a cozy booth at their favorite restaurant, Jamie looked at Alex with concern etched across his face. "You've been Mia lately," Jamie said, stirring his drink absent-mindedly. "How are things with, you know who?" "Ethan," Alex replied, trying to gauge Jamie's reaction. "Yeah," Jamie said cautiously. "How's that going?" "It's complicated," Alex admitted, feeling a mix of frustration and confusion. "He's been helping me with everything." "But," Jamie prompted gently. "But I don't know if I can trust him completely," Alex confessed, feeling the weight of his uncertainty pressing down on him. "He says he wants to protect me, but sometimes it feels like he's too intense, like he's crossing boundaries." Jamie leaned back in his seat, considering Alex's words carefully. "Have you talked to him about how you feel?" "No," Alex replied quickly. "I don't want to hurt him or push him away." "Alex," Jamie said firmly, "you need to be honest with him about your feelings. If he truly cares about you, he'll understand." As they continued talking over dinner, Jamie's words echoed in Alex's mind long after they parted ways. He realized that avoiding the conversation wouldn't make things easier, it would only complicate their already tangled relationship further. That night, as Alex lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he replayed every moment he had spent with Ethan, The laughter they shared, the quiet moments that felt charged with unspoken tension. He thought about how Ethan had opened up about his past and how vulnerable he had allowed himself to be around Alex. But there were still questions lingering in the back of his mind, questions about Ethan's true intentions and whether he was genuinely looking out for Alex or if there was something darker lurking beneath the surface. The next day brought an unexpected turn when Ethan texted him asking if they could meet earlier than usual. Curiosity piqued, Alex felt a mix of anticipation and dread as he made his way to the cafe. When he arrived, Ethan was already seated at their usual table, an unusual intensity in his expression that made Alex's heart race. "Hey," Ethan greeted him as soon as he sat down. "Hey," Alex replied cautiously, noting the tension radiating from Ethan. "I have something important to discuss," Ethan said without preamble, his voice low and serious. Alex felt a knot tighten in his stomach again. "What is it?" "I think I might have found something," Ethan said, leaning closer as if afraid someone might overhear them. "I saw him again last night." The air around them thickened with unspoken fear as Alex processed Ethan's words. "You saw him? Where?" "He was outside your building again," Ethan replied grimly. "I didn't want to alarm you before I had something concrete to show you." "What do you mean by something concrete?" Alex asked anxiously. "I recorded some footage," Ethan said, pulling out his phone and tapping through videos until he found one labeled simply, Alex. He handed it over to Alex with a steady gaze. With trembling hands, Alex pressed play. The screen flickered to life, showing a grainy image of a figure standing across the street from his apartment building under the dim glow of a streetlight. The man was partially obscured by shadows but unmistakably familiar, the same figure who had haunted Alex's thoughts for weeks. "Is that?" Alex whispered, unable to finish the question as dread pooled in his stomach. "Yes," Ethan confirmed quietly as they both watched the video intently. The figure shifted slightly but remained mostly still, a predator lurking just out of reach. Alex felt a wave of nausea wash over him as reality crashed down around him like an avalanche. This wasn't paranoia, this was real, and it was happening right outside his door. "What do we do?" Alex asked breathlessly as the video ended abruptly. "We take this seriously now," Ethan said firmly, determination flooding his voice. "We go to the police." The suggestion sent another wave of panic through Alex. The thought of involving law enforcement made everything feel too real, too heavy, but deep down inside him flickered a sense of urgency that couldn't be ignored. "Okay," he finally agreed after what felt like an eternity of silence hanging between them. As they left the cafe together and stepped into the bustling street outside, Alex felt an odd mix of fear and resolve coursing through him, a reminder that while danger lurked in the shadows, so too did hope for reclaiming control over his life once more. The police station was fraught with tension, the air thick with unspoken fears and uncertainty. Alex sat in the passenger seat of Ethan's car, his hands clenched tightly in his lap as they navigated through the bustling city streets. Each stoplight felt like an eternity, and every passing moment heightened his anxiety. What would they say? Would they take him seriously? Ethan glanced over at Alex, concern etched on his face. "You okay?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "Yeah," Alex replied, though he could feel the tightness in his chest betraying him. "Just nervous." "Understandable," Ethan said, his eyes returning to the road. "But remember, this is about your safety. You're doing the right thing." As they pulled into the police station parking lot, Alex took a deep breath and tried to steady himself. The building loomed ahead, its sterile exterior reflecting the gray sky above. He felt a wave of apprehension wash over him as they stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance. Inside, the station was bustling with activity, officers moving purposefully through the lobby, phones ringing, and people waiting anxiously for assistance. The atmosphere felt heavy with a sense of urgency that made Alex's heart race even faster. Ethan led the way to the front desk, where a uniformed officer greeted them with a polite smile. "How can I help you today?" Alex opened his mouth to speak but found that words eluded him. Instead, Ethan stepped forward, taking charge. "We need to report a stalking incident," he said firmly. The officer's expression shifted slightly as he nodded and gestured for them to take a seat in one of the waiting areas. "Please have a seat, someone will be with you shortly." As they settled into the plastic chairs, Alex felt a mix of gratitude and frustration toward Ethan for stepping in when he couldn't find his voice. The minutes stretched on like hours as they waited in silence, the weight of their situation pressing down on them. What if they don't believe us? Alex finally asked, breaking the silence that had settled between them. They will, Ethan assured him. You have evidence. That's what matters. Just then, an officer approached them, a woman in her late 30s with a no-nonsense demeanor and kind eyes. Hello there, she said, offering a reassuring smile. I'm Officer Martinez. I understand you want to report a stalking incident. Alex nodded, feeling a rush of relief mixed with anxiety as he met her gaze. Yes, he said, his voice steadier now that he was speaking directly with someone who could help. Can you tell me what's been happening? Officer Martinez asked as she took a seat across from them. Alex exchanged a glance with Ethan before launching into their story, the strange figure lurking outside his apartment, Ethan's surveillance footage capturing the man's presence, and their growing fear that something terrible might happen if they didn't act. As he spoke, Officer Martinez listened intently, taking notes and asking clarifying questions when necessary. The more he shared, the more empowered he felt. It was as if voicing his fears aloud made them less daunting. When he finished recounting everything, Officer Martinez leaned back in her chair thoughtfully. Thank you for sharing all of this, she said gently. It's important that we take these threats seriously. Ethan interjected at that moment. We have footage of him outside Alex's building. He pulled out his phone and navigated to the video they had recorded earlier. May I see it? Officer Martinez asked, her expression serious but focused. Ethan handed over the phone without hesitation. As she watched the video intently, Alex held his breath, anxiety clawing at him again as he waited for her reaction. After what felt like an eternity, Officer Martinez looked up from the screen. This is very helpful, she said decisively. I'll need to file a report and gather some information from you both. Alex nodded eagerly as she began asking questions about their contact information and any additional details they could provide about the man in the video. Once everything was documented, Officer Martinez stood up and gestured for them to follow her down a hallway lined with framed photographs of past officers in service. They entered a small interview room equipped with a table and 2 chairs facing each other. Please have a seat, she instructed as she closed the door behind them. Once seated across from each other again, Officer Martinez leaned forward slightly. I want you both to know that we take these matters very seriously, she said earnestly. Stalking can escalate quickly if not addressed properly. Alex felt a shiver run down his spine at her words, an unsettling reminder of how precarious his situation truly was. We'll start by filing an official report, Officer Martinez continued. Then we can discuss safety measures and potential next steps. As she guided them through the process of filing the report, Alex felt an odd mix of relief and fear wash over him, the relief of finally taking action against his stalker but also dread at what might come next. After what seemed like hours filled with questions and paperwork, Officer Martinez concluded their meeting with some practical advice on how to stay safe moving forward, varying routines, being aware of their surroundings at all times, and considering additional security measures for Alex's apartment. Thank you for coming in today, she said sincerely as they prepared to leave. We'll do everything we can to help you. As they stepped back into the bustling lobby of the station, Alex felt an unexpected sense of empowerment coursing through him, a realization that he wasn't alone anymore in this fight against fear. Ethan turned to him with an encouraging smile. You did great in there, he said warmly. Thanks, Alex replied softly but couldn't shake off the lingering doubts that still clouded his mind. Doubts about whether this would truly be enough to keep him safe or if they were merely scratching the surface of something much darker. As they walked back to Ethan's car under an overcast sky threatening rain once more, Alex felt both vulnerable and resolute, a mixture that left him feeling raw yet alive. But beneath it all lingered an unsettling question: would confronting this darkness finally allow him to reclaim his life? Or would it only lead them deeper into danger? The days following their visit to the police station passed in a blur of heightened anxiety and cautious optimism. Officer Martinez had assured them that they would investigate the footage and keep an eye on Alex's building, but the reality of the situation weighed heavily on him. Each time he stepped outside, he felt as if he were being watched, the shadows stretching longer with each passing moment. Ethan remained a constant presence, accompanying Alex everywhere. He insisted it was for Alex's safety, but there were times when Alex felt suffocated by Ethan's unwavering vigilance. It was comforting to have someone looking out for him, yet it also stirred a sense of unease, an awareness that their relationship had shifted into something more complicated. One evening, after a long day at work, Alex returned home to find Ethan waiting for him outside his apartment building. The sight of him brought a rush of relief and warmth, but it was tinged with an undercurrent of tension that had become all too familiar. "Hey," Ethan greeted him, his expression serious. "I wanted to talk to you about something." "Sure," Alex replied, trying to shake off the feeling of dread that settled in his stomach. "What's up?" Ethan glanced around before stepping closer, lowering his voice. "I think we need to take this to the next level." "What do you mean?" Alex asked, confusion knitting his brow. "I mean we need to confront this guy," Ethan said firmly. "I've been doing some more surveillance, and I think I know where he hangs out." A rush of adrenaline coursed through Alex at the suggestion. "Confront him? Are you serious?" "Yes," Ethan replied without hesitation. "We can't just wait for something to happen. We need to show him that we're not afraid." The idea sent a wave of panic through Alex. "That sounds dangerous. What if he retaliates?" Ethan stepped back slightly, giving Alex space to breathe. "I understand your fear, but we can't let him control our lives. If we confront him together, we can make sure you're safe." Alex felt torn between fear and a growing sense of determination. He didn't want to live in fear anymore, he wanted to reclaim his life. But the thought of facing someone who had been stalking him sent chills down his spine. "Okay," he said finally, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "Let's do it." Ethan's eyes lit up with approval, but there was also a seriousness that made Alex realize how much this meant to him too. They spent the next hour discussing their plan, where they would go, what they would say, and how they would ensure Alex's safety throughout the confrontation. As night fell and darkness enveloped the city, they drove to a small park where Ethan believed the stalker often lingered. The streets were quiet, illuminated only by the occasional streetlight flickering overhead. Alex's heart raced as they parked and stepped out of the car. "Are you ready?" Ethan asked, his voice low as they walked toward the park entrance. "Not really," Alex admitted honestly, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach. "Just remember, you're not alone in this," Ethan reassured him as they moved deeper into the park. They found a bench near a well-lit area and settled down to wait. The minutes dragged on like hours as they scanned their surroundings for any sign of movement. The tension between them crackled in the air, a mix of anticipation and fear that made it hard for Alex to focus. "What if he doesn't show up?" Alex finally asked, breaking the silence. "He will," Ethan replied confidently. "He's been watching you for weeks, he won't pass up an opportunity." As if summoned by their discussion, a figure emerged from the shadows across the park, a tall man with dark clothing that blended into the night. Alex's heart raced as he recognized him instantly. It was the stalker. "There he is," Ethan whispered, his voice steady but urgent. Alex felt frozen in place as fear coursed through him, every instinct screamed at him to run away or hide. But as he watched Ethan's determined expression beside him, something shifted within him. This was his chance to confront his fears head-on. "Stay close," Ethan instructed quietly as they rose from the bench and approached the man who had haunted Alex's thoughts for so long. "Hey," Ethan called out as they drew nearer, projecting confidence even though Alex could feel his heart pounding in his chest like a war drum. The man turned slowly at the sound of Ethan's voice, surprise flickering across his features before settling into an unreadable expression. "What do you want?" he asked coolly. "I want you to leave Alex alone," Ethan stated firmly, stepping forward protectively. The stalker's gaze shifted between them, amusement dancing in his eyes as if he found their confrontation amusing rather than threatening. "And what if I don't?" he replied casually. Alex felt a surge of anger rise within him at those words, anger that propelled him forward despite every instinct telling him to retreat. "You've been following me," he said loudly enough for both men to hear. "It needs to stop." The stalker chuckled softly, shaking his head as if dismissing their concerns entirely. "You think you can just confront me like this? You don't know who you're dealing with." "I know enough," Ethan shot back defiantly. "And I'm not going anywhere until you leave him alone." For a moment, silence hung thick in the air as they stood facing one another, three men locked in an unyielding standoff under the dim glow of streetlights. Then suddenly, without warning, the stalker took a step back and raised his hands mockingly in surrender. "Fine," he said with feigned nonchalance. "I'll leave your little friend alone, for now." With that cryptic statement hanging ominously between them, he turned on his heel and walked away into the darkness from which he had emerged. Alex felt breathless as adrenaline coursed through him, an intoxicating mix of fear and exhilaration flooding every nerve ending in his body. They had confronted him, they had taken action against something that had loomed over them for far too long. Ethan turned toward Alex with an expression filled with pride and relief mixed together, a silent acknowledgement of what they had just accomplished together. "You did great," Ethan said sincerely as they began walking back toward their car. "I can't believe we actually did that," Alex replied breathlessly, still processing what had just happened. "Neither can I," Ethan admitted with a chuckle that broke through some of the tension still lingering in the air between them. But beneath their shared exhilaration lay an unspoken truth: the confrontation might have been just one step forward in a much larger battle against fear and uncertainty still lurking in the shadows. As they drove home under a blanket of stars shining brightly above them, a stark contrast to everything they had faced, Alex felt something shift within himself, a newfound sense of empowerment mingled with lingering doubts about what lay ahead. The following days after their confrontation with the Stalker were a whirlwind of emotions for Alex. He felt an odd mix of relief and anxiety, as if the act of standing up to his fear had both liberated him and exposed him to greater danger. Ethan remained by his side, a constant source of support, but the tension between them had shifted once again. Despite their initial triumph, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the encounter had only scratched the surface of a deeper issue. The Stalker's mocking words echoed in his mind, "I'll leave your little friend alone, for now." It was a threat that loomed over him like a dark cloud, reminding him that the battle was far from over. One evening, as they sat in Alex's living room reviewing footage from the surveillance cameras, he noticed Ethan's brow furrowed in concentration. "What are you thinking?" Alex asked, breaking the silence. Ethan glanced up, his expression serious. "I've been analyzing the footage from last week since we confronted him. I think he's still watching you." A chill ran down Alex's spine at Ethan's words. "What do you mean? I thought we scared him off." "I thought so too," Ethan replied, shaking his head. "But I've seen him lurking around your building again. He's just being more careful about it. Why won't he just leave me alone?" Alex felt frustration bubbling up inside him, a mix of anger and fear that threatened to overflow. "I don't know," Ethan said quietly. "But we need to take this seriously. We can't let our guard down." Alex nodded, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach. The sense of safety he had briefly felt after their confrontation was slipping away, replaced by a gnawing anxiety that refused to let go. "Maybe we should go back to the police," Alex suggested hesitantly. "Tell them what's happening." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "We can do that, but I'm not sure how much more they can help us at this point. They're already aware of the situation." "Then what do we do?" Alex asked desperately. Ethan paused for a moment, contemplating his next words carefully. "I think we need to take matters into our own hands again." "What do you mean?" Alex asked, his heart racing at the thought of confronting the Stalker once more. "We could set up a trap," Ethan suggested, his eyes lighting up with determination. "If we can catch him in the act, if we can get proof that he's still stalking you, then we can take it to the police and make them act." The idea sent a shiver down Alex's spine. "A trap? That sounds dangerous." "I know it does," Ethan replied earnestly. "But it might be our best chance at putting an end to this once and for all." Alex felt torn between fear and a growing sense of resolve. He didn't want to live in fear anymore. He wanted to reclaim control over his life. But the thought of confronting his stalker again was terrifying. "Okay," he said finally, steeling himself for what lay ahead. "Let's do it." They spent the next few days planning their strategy meticulously, deciding on locations where they could set up hidden cameras and how they would lure the stalker out without putting themselves in harm's way. Each discussion brought with it a mix of excitement and dread as they prepared for what felt like an inevitable confrontation. Finally, the night arrived when they would put their plan into action. The air was thick with anticipation as they positioned themselves near Alex's apartment building, concealed behind some bushes across the street where they had set up cameras. "Are you ready?" Ethan asked quietly as they waited in silence, adrenaline coursing through them both. "I guess as ready as I'll ever be," Alex replied, trying to steady his breathing. They waited for what felt like hours, tension hanging heavily in the air as they scanned their surroundings for any sign of movement. Just when doubt began to creep in, When Alex started to wonder if they were wasting their time, a figure emerged from the shadows across the street. There he is, Ethan whispered urgently, pointing toward the man who had haunted Alex's life for so long. The stalker moved cautiously, glancing around as if checking for any signs of danger before making his way toward Alex's building. Alex felt his heart race as adrenaline surged through him. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. Keep your phone ready, Ethan instructed quietly as they watched intently from their hiding place. As the stalker approached closer to the entrance of the building, Ethan signaled for Alex to start recording on his phone while he activated their hidden cameras aimed directly at their target. "What are you doing here?" Ethan called out suddenly, stepping out from behind their cover with confidence that surprised even himself. The stalker froze mid-step, eyes widening in shock before narrowing into a glare as he recognized who had confronted him yet again. "What do you want?" he spat defiantly. "We want you to leave Alex alone," Ethan shouted back, standing firm despite the palpable tension in the air. The confrontation escalated quickly, words turned into heated exchanges filled with accusations and threats exchanged between them. The stalker seemed unfazed by their presence at first but soon realized that this time things were different. He was being recorded. "Get out of here before I call the cops," Ethan warned fiercely. The man hesitated for just a moment before taking a step back and sneering at them both. "You think this is going to scare me off? You have no idea who you're dealing with." With those chilling words hanging ominously in the air, he turned abruptly and fled into the darkness from which he had come. Alex felt breathless as adrenaline coursed through him, an intoxicating mixture of fear and exhilaration flooding every nerve ending in his body once more. They had confronted him, they had taken action against something that had loomed over them for far too long. "Did we get it?" Ethan asked urgently as they rushed back toward their hiding place to retrieve their equipment. "Yeah," Alex replied breathlessly as he checked his phone for footage while simultaneously activating their hidden cameras one last time before heading home together. As they walked back toward Ethan's car under an ink-black sky filled with stars shining brightly above, a stark contrast to everything they had faced, Alex felt something shift within himself, a newfound sense of empowerment mingled with lingering doubts about what lay ahead. But beneath it all lingered an unsettling truth. While they had taken significant steps forward tonight, there was still much left unresolved, and danger still lurked just beyond their reach. The following days after their confrontation with the stalker felt surreal for Alex. The adrenaline from that night still coursed through him, but it was mixed with an overwhelming sense of uncertainty. They had captured footage of the stalker, but the reality of what that meant weighed heavily on his mind. What if he retaliated? What if he came after them again? Ethan remained a steadfast presence, but even his usual confidence seemed tempered by the gravity of their situation. They had submitted the footage to Officer Martinez, who assured them that she would take it seriously and begin an investigation. Yet, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were still in danger. One evening, as they sat in Alex's living room watching a movie to distract themselves, Ethan turned to him with a serious expression. "I've been thinking," he said slowly, "about what we're going to do next." "What do you mean?" Alex asked, pausing the film and turning to face him. "I mean, once the police have reviewed the footage and hopefully find something actionable, we need to prepare ourselves for any possible fallout," Ethan said. "This guy isn't going to just disappear." The knot in Alex's stomach tightened at Ethan's words. "You think he'll come after us?" "I think it's possible," Ethan replied honestly. "That's why we need to be vigilant. We should consider increasing your security, maybe even getting a restraining order if it comes to that." Alex nodded slowly, feeling a mix of fear and determination. "I don't want to live in fear anymore," he said firmly. "I want to take control of my life." Ethan smiled at him, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. "That's exactly the attitude we need right now." As they discussed potential safety measures, installing a better security system in Alex's apartment and varying their routines, Alex felt a sense of empowerment beginning to bloom within him. He was no longer just a victim, he was actively fighting back against the fear that had consumed him for so long. The following day brought news from Officer Martinez. She called Alex while he was at work, her voice steady yet urgent. "We've reviewed the footage you provided," she said. "We're taking this very seriously and have identified the individual in your video." Alex's heart raced at her words. "You know who he is?" "Yes," she confirmed. He has a history of harassment and stalking in this area. We're currently working on gathering more evidence against him before we approach him directly. Is there anything I should do? Alex asked, anxiety creeping back into his voice. Just continue being vigilant, Officer Martinez advised. We'll keep you updated on our progress, but I want you to know that you're not alone in this. After hanging up, Alex felt both relieved and anxious, relieved that there was finally some action being taken but anxious about what might happen next. That evening, as he met Ethan at their usual cafe, he shared the news with him. Ethan listened intently, his expression shifting from concern to determination as Alex recounted Officer Martinez's update. This is good news, Ethan said firmly. It means we're not just sitting ducks anymore. Yeah, Alex agreed, though doubt still lingered in his mind. But what if he finds out we reported him? What if he retaliates? Ethan reached across the table and placed his hand over Alex's reassuringly. We'll be ready for whatever comes next, he promised. We've faced this together already, we can handle anything else that comes our way. The warmth of Ethan's touch sent a rush of comfort through Alex, grounding him amidst the chaos swirling around them. For the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, a belief that maybe they could overcome this together. As they left the cafe hand in hand, Alex felt a renewed sense of purpose surging through him. He was determined not just to survive but to reclaim his life fully. Over the next few weeks, they worked together to bolster Alex's security, installing cameras inside and outside his apartment and ensuring that all entrances were well lit and monitored. They also began varying their routines more deliberately, taking different routes home from work and avoiding places where they might be easily cornered. Despite their efforts, however, anxiety lingered like an unwelcome shadow over them both. Then one evening, as they were settling down for dinner at Alex's apartment after another long day of work and planning, there was a sudden knock at the door that sent both men jumping. Who could that be? Alex asked nervously as he exchanged a worried glance with Ethan. Stay here, Ethan instructed firmly as he moved toward the door cautiously. Alex held his breath as Ethan peered through the peephole before stepping back quickly with a look of alarm on his face. It's Officer Martinez, he said quietly. Relief washed over Alex as Ethan opened the door to let her in. What's going on? Ethan asked immediately. We have some important updates regarding your case, Officer Martinez said as she stepped inside. Alex felt his heart race again as she closed the door behind her and took a seat at the kitchen table where they had been eating dinner moments before. We've located your stalker, she began without preamble. He was apprehended last night after attempting to approach another victim. What does that mean for us? Alex asked anxiously. It means that we can now proceed with filing charges against him based on your evidence and witness statements, Officer Martinez explained. You'll need to come down to the station tomorrow to formally file your statement. A wave of relief washed over Alex, a feeling so profound it almost brought tears to his eyes. They had taken action, they had stood up against fear together, and now it seemed like justice might finally be within reach. Thank you, Ethan said earnestly as he placed a reassuring hand on Alex's shoulder. As Officer Martinez left shortly afterward, leaving them alone once again in the dim light of the apartment, Alex felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over him, not just for her help but for Ethan's unwavering support throughout this entire ordeal. I can't believe this is really happening, Alex said softly as they settled back onto the couch together. It is happening, Ethan replied with a soft smile that filled Alex with warmth. And whatever happens next, we'll face it together. In that moment, surrounded by shadows that no longer felt threatening but rather protective, Alex realized how far he had come from being paralyzed by fear into becoming an active participant in reclaiming his life. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was thriving, and it felt incredible. As they sat together under the soft glow of their living room lights, hands intertwined and hearts resolute against whatever challenges lay ahead, Alex knew one thing for certain: he would never let fear dictate his life again.